Hey, what's up, guys? 2020 is crazy, right? I mean, if this hadn't been one of the most insane periods in your life, then you've got to be like 103 and lived through like the Great Depression or the World War II era, because the rest of us are just like loud. In fact, the CDC just released some information that I found devastating. It said that people over the age of 50 are at an increased risk of about 20 to 30% higher of heart attacks and strokes and dying of natural causes just because of isolation. Like, this is literally killing some people. And that's what I want to talk about, because the truth of the matter is, you are never alone. God is inside of us all. So rock with me a minute, and I'm going to show you how to take the journey within. Greetings and salutations. I'm Justin. Welcome back to the Mystical Mind State. 2 years ago, I was in prison. I was watching my daughter grow up through JPay, getting pictures of her first day of school sent to me in the mail. And since then, God has completely transformed my life. I want other people to awaken to the benefits of spiritual practice as well. So mash that button and like and subscribe, because I really do this. Y'all mean? Alright guys, let's jump in there. Sincerely I learned about her, and ungrudgingly do I share. Her riches I do not hide away, for she is an unfailing treasure. Those who gain this treasure win the friendship of God, being commended by the gifts that come from her discipline. Her. Awakening the goddess within is what ultimately set me on my course into mysticism. At the time, I had no clue what awakening actually meant. What I thought was happening and what actually happened are two very different things. See, I thought I was unlocking Solomon's secret code. I didn't realize that God was breathing his spirit into me. I had long since considered Solomon to be the godfather of Western esotericism or spiritualized alchemy. Alchemy in this sense being the transmutation of selfish sexual desire into a living spiritual practice. Much of what follows in these videos were lessons that I learned through prayer and meditation. As my inner guide, Sophia, started teaching me and raising my vibration to a level of conscious contact with God, a lot of the allegories in the scriptures just became revealed to me. For wisdom, the artisan of all taught me. Now, without a rudimentary understanding of the subtle energy centers or chakras in the body, most mystical practices will sound like absolute psychobabble. If I were to say, construct a temple in the heart of the rose and wisdom will come, it would sound like absolute psychobabble to you. But it was this exact passage in Mark Booth's Secret History of the World that gave me my first key into unlocking the ancient mysteries. Because clearly this is an allegory for how we should meditate at the heart chakra, right? And this is also the way, like the really, really cryptic way, that westernized alchemy was passed down throughout the ages. So learning of this mystical double talk made me pick up the Bible and reread it. Did Solomon's stories and the wisdom books really hold all of the mystical wisdom of the ages? Yes. I began pouring through the scriptures because I wanted to know God. I was hungry. I prayed that God would reveal himself through these words and jump off the pages at me. And that's exactly what happened. Now, I know there's a lot of difference between East and West here. Like the two systems that they use aren't exactly the same. You have the Kundalini in the East, and then you have the Sephiroth, the Tree of Life, in the Kabbalah. And in this video, I know it's very unorthodox to do this with the Bible, I'm going to focus on the Kundalini as I feel that most Westerners are more familiar with it these days. We just don't know about our own spiritual lineage. I mean, Eastern traditions are rich with various methods and ways that we can raise our conscious contact, right? Many of us dive into these teachings looking outwards, when the truth of the matter is we're looking in the wrong direction. All we have to do to find God is to look within. In fact, that might be the only thing that mystics from all paths do agree upon. God is within us all. The Bible is riddled with allegories on how the great mystics or prophets meditated, what visualization techniques they used, and the realizations that they had. I mean, that's what Ezekiel is. That's what Isaiah is. That's what Revelation, the Apocalypse of John is, right? We Christians have this rich history of mysticism that we should be embracing and cherishing as opposed to running from or denying. Now, because I'm in a crash course through the East on my way back West, let's jump through there. Glory, glory to Mother Kundalini, who through her infinite grace and power leads the Siddhaka from chakra to chakra and illumines his intellect and makes him realize his identity with the Supreme Brahman. Now, Sri Swami Swananda is speaking of Shakti awakening within us and the serpentine power taking our consciousness to higher and higher and higher levels until we achieve oneness with the Supreme Brahman, which is the Yahweh of Hinduism, right? I know that's a very bad analogy, but it's the closest thing I have to compare it to, so just bear with me. Now, the 7 chakras along the Kundalini are considered to be the main energy centers of our body, right? They can be viewed as gateways where energy flows through and creates harmony between the body, the spirit, and the mind. If energy at any one of these points is blocked, that's how we feel physically ill or our balance is off or other things like that happen. Mystics throughout the ages have urged us to understand how spiritual power flows through us, how energy gathers at each chakra, and what influence, if any, the celestial bodies actually have on us, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Everything in the known universe is not only interconnected, but maintains a balance. We would do well to respect that and not tamper with it. Please understand that while we have a collected set of words to describe like how energy interacts at these points, at the end of the day, your personal experience should never be undermined or not taken seriously. Mysticism is very, very subjective, and as your intuition grows, your understanding deepens. So always, always, always trust your intuition. Your higher self, your spiritual being that's actually connected to God, knows better than anyone in a book, knows better than me in this video. So take everything you read, take everything you watch, take everything you hear with a grain of salt, and reserve your final conclusions for yourself. Because all any of us can do is point you in the right direction. But it's you who ultimately has to take the steps. Just remember, her ways are pleasant and all her paths are peace. So the first in the long line of 7 that we have is Muladhara, the base chakra. This represents the foundation. It's what keeps us grounded and gives us our sense of fight or flight. It is also a seed of power, where the seed is planted within us all. Many of us consider it the root of Shakti or Sophia's power, coiled at the base of our spine. This is that serpentine power. Now next you have Svadhisthana, right? Oneself. It drives one's desire and governs how our emotions interact with others. The raw sexual energy we all have is housed right here. Now this is an incredibly creative force if it's channeled properly. The seat of our willpower also rests here. It's from this chakra that alchemists cultivate a red-hot, passionate desire to manifest into the material world. Next you have Manipura, the city of jewels, right? Described as a great seat of power that feeds our ability to either take control or stumble in our lives. Think of butterflies in your stomach and compare it to the sensation of your gut dropping. Our alchemical concept in the West is that of in vegetalis. And this talks of seizing power that rests here and harnessing it. So does Taoism. That's the middle Dantian to them. Next is Anahata, the heart of the rose. Now this is literally the heart of the matter for me. Traditionally, it connects the lower realms of existence to the higher planes of consciousness. The lower chakras are representative of how we interact with the material world, while the upper chakras pertain to the spirit. The heart is the balance. It gives us the ability to give and receive divine love. It is here where I first constructed my temple. It is here where I first met Sophia. It is here where I started to awaken to the spiritual nature of all things. Next you have Vishuddha in the throat, purification. This is the mechanism that reveals the wishes of the heart. Our ability to speak things into existence is harnessed right here. It's the center of our creative mechanisms where we transmute energy from our lower selves into the physical reality around us. We do so through the power of speech. Why do you think so many proverbs warn against guarding your tongue? Because the moist speaking center in the back of your throat is a place of power. Your words have power. When your thoughts form from their emotional states and you speak them into existence, you are becoming a co-creator in your own reality. You are what you focus your attention on. That's why I recommend shifting your attention to divine grace and love, because then you make God a partner in your life and he starts moving through you in a very profound way. So next we have one we all know, Ajna Chakra, right? The third eye. This is the seat of our eternal self, that everlasting part of us. It is both the eye to our soul and home to our intuition. It's also the only chakra with Om at its center. Eastern mystics consider this to be the seed of creation. In Western alchemy, we have the concept of Sal Nitram, the mind reorganizing the cosmos. Next, you have Nirvana, right? The crown chakra. This represents our ability to connect with the divine. When this energy center opens up, we truly have access to that cosmic oneness at the root of all things. Consciously experiencing these higher states of being is the realization of the spiritual path. If this chakra actually opens at our death, it is because we are returning to our origin. Jesus alludes to this fact in Thomas 18 when he says, "Blessed is anyone who will stand up in the beginning and thereby know the end and never die." To consciously experience such a revelation would be a truly remarkable experience. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Returning to God, consciously returning to God. I mean, come on, guys. There are quite a few other chakras in the body. There's 3 more in the crown alone, but these 7 will suffice for the lessons that follow. So when we talk about the rising in the Kundalini, what we're talking about is spiritual awakening. The common misconception amongst Christians is that there is no biblical telling of how this can be achieved. In fact, the general consensus seems to be that the Bible doesn't speak a different consciousness at all, right? While I was awaiting trial, my lawyer suggested that I read the Bible as if it were chronicling different stages of human consciousness development, right? Our conscious evolution, if you would. In doing so, I uncovered a vast amount of esoteric wisdom in the first 3 chapters of Genesis alone. I'll do an entire segment on that one day. But by the time I made it to King Solomon and all his teachings, I was already tuned in. And Solomon's interesting because everything in the story of his life is meant to convey a spiritual practice. I mean, they talk about the Queen of the Sabians from the south rising north to meet the wise king of the north, right? In the holy city. This has been told in so many different things. This is Shakti and Shiva. This is the husband and wife in the bedchamber in Taoism. The chemical wedding of Christian Rosicrucians. The union of the opposites. Even the wedding in Cana is speaking on this because gender plays down throughout creation and we have both male and female elements inside us. And it's when we reconcile the opposites that we find conscious contact with God. Here lies the crux of the mystery. When Jesus said, "Blessed is the one who existed before coming into being," he is alluding to a deeper truth. In our end, in the physical plane, we return to our beginning. See, there are 2 creation stories in Genesis. There's the first one we see where God created humankind in his image that we see in Genesis 1:27. But we often miss the significance of what's being conveyed here. We like to translate this in the meaning that God looks like we do and is some carbon-based life form walking around on 2 legs. But we keep missing key points here. What if it means likeness of mind? That would imply our consciousness, that eternal part of us, springs from the cosmic mind of God. Then, and only then, can we grasp how our consciousness is interconnected with the divine. We are his sons. We are chosen ones of the living Father. This was Jesus' message. He was showing us how to move past our dualistic nature into the cosmic oneness of all creation. The kingdom of heaven and the Garden of Eden are one and the same here. It's our duality that has crippled our understanding. Think of Thomas 61c. Therefore I say that if one is unified, one will be filled with light. But if one is divided, one will be filled with darkness. Moments before, he told Solomon exactly who he was when he said, "I am he who came into being from him who is the same." Nowadays, we all run around denying each other's beliefs, claiming to have these exclusive rights to salvation. We deny each other, claiming that our explanations are superior, and argue each other down. And for what? Spiritual superiority? See, all of these abstract intellectual concepts actually hinder our growth. As the connection to Yahweh became less felt and less concrete, that inner sense of constant contact with God became lost. However, God is alive and well within all things. Anyone can awaken to his presence. We are the temple. King Solomon brought Hiram from Tyre. He was a bronze worker, the son of a widow, endowed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for doing any bronze work. He set up columns at the temple of the porch. One he set up to the south and called it Jachin. The other to the north he called it Boaz. The construction of Solomon's temple, as written in 1 Kings, is yet another metaphor for meditative practice. The diagram of the temple, if you draw it out of the Bible, and the one that's standing in Jerusalem does not match. That's because it's an allegory. This meant that we were supposed to construct the temple within ourselves. And he gave us the dimensions to do this, right? Hiram, Abiff, and King Solomon represent the two paths one can take to attain spiritual perfection. One exacts his cosmic will through meditation, while the other is immersed in intense earthly work enacting God's will. When the two paths are balanced, we are connected to God in a very real way. Here's where occultists and I tend to part ways. Some have taken to believing that they are meant to bend the physical world to their will. Since Jachin and Boaz represent the pulse of the cosmos, by measuring the furthest risings of the sun at the equinoxes, they believe they can simply tune in and manifest whatever they desire. They take forms spoken of in the Kabbalah and they twist them to meet their ends. And they're not wrong, guys. I mean, it's absolutely true. You can do that. But for me, this is an act of submitting my will to the will of God, right? A righteous person is one who submits to the will of God, right? So the power hungry will always take this as an example of Hiram transforming the material world and claim it's our God-given right to draw whatever we want to ourselves. But we're the salt of the earth. And being called to lead by example. It's only by being the best version of ourselves that we can truly draw people to the path and show them the right way. So that requires submitting to the will of God. The tree of life, obviously, is a Near Eastern version of how the spirit travels through existence and illustrates how everything is interconnected with God. By meditating on the forms found in the Kabbalah, we can align our will with the will of the living Father. One only has to look at the name of God to understand where I found my personal belief in this. Yehovah, not the God who exists, but the God who effects his will. King Solomon clearly understood this. If you see in 1 Kings 3:9, he says, "Give your servant, therefore, a listening heart to judge your people, and to distinguish between good and evil. For who is capable of giving judgment to this vast people of yours?" And just like that, my visualization technique came to being. I realized that all I had to do was ask God for wisdom. I vocalized the desire to serve. And I believed with all of my heart, and I received her. The heart chakra was the key to unlocking this ancient mystery. So, what does it mean to construct the temple at the heart of the rose? Through your mind's eye, visualize a temple being built where your heart is. Construct it however you like. I chose the mathematical breakdown of a 6-point star because it resonates with me. But once you visualize the temple itself in detail, ask Yahweh to fill your heart with wisdom and to guide your steps. Say it out loud. Repeat it as many times as you need to. But remember, everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door shall be opened. Jesus then goes on to say, "But seek ye first the kingdom of heaven." It's in Luke 17:21 where he explains, "The coming of the kingdom of God cannot be observed, physically perceived. For behold, the kingdom of God is inside you." All mystical experience begins with us seeking God through prayer and meditation. Prayer being how we talk, and meditation being how we listen. I personally can't picture one without the other and have found them both to be of great benefit to my spiritual development. Now, in the next couple of videos, I'll get into a prayer technique and a meditative technique that utilizes these chakras in a little more detail. But I kind of just wanted to flesh out what the interior world looked like and give you guys some ideas of what we're actually talking about, because I'm about to dive into the deep end of the pool and really break down what esoteric Christianity looks like. Now, I want you guys to know that this comes from a very genuine place to help you develop spiritually. And it's because of that I want you to know that make sure it is your desire to to actually develop a walk with God. Because if it's not, that will be reflected in your practice. I am telling you that after years of prayer, years of meditation, you will come to a fork in the road, and you will have to make the decision for yourself. Do I want to bend the world to my will? Or do I want to bend my will to the will of the Father? But that is a choice that everyone must make for themselves. As always, feel free to hit me up on any one of these sites. I'm on Facebook as Mystical Mind State. I'm on Instagram as the same thing. My Tumblr account is Brother Hermes. You can also hit me up on my website, mysticalmindstate.com. Don't forget to mash that button and like and subscribe. If you have any questions, just hit me up on any one of these platforms and I'll chop it up with you. This is my life's work, guys. I really do this. Peace be with you all.